There's too many people that are isolated in trying to do good work for God. They're all trying to figure out how to market Catholicism in a fresh way that actually engages people.
So we tried it the first year, had tremendous success.
It's exciting. I'm having fun. I'm meeting a lot of really great people.
I have been to all of these shows over the last year, and by far this is my favorite.
I want to emphasize the importance of what you're doing as lay apostles in the CMN.
The Catholic Marketing Network has a service that the marketplace needs and the church needs.
There's the distribution of a lot of Catholic religious items, but most of the people you talk to, they say, we really come for the networking.
It's a great joy to be here. In fact, it was almost 10 years ago that I came to the Catholic Marketing Network for the first time. There was a friend and I putting out sacred music. St. Ignatius Press picked it up and they showcased us, and before you know it, we had sold 20,000 copies to people like you. And that sprungboard a company that now has reach in about 8 different countries.
I found really good and very interesting because I like when people come from everywhere and we can learn a lot. We come to show something, but they show us too. So that's amazing.
This is always one of my favorite events.
I always love coming here and being here because it's such a synergy to be around like-minded people with the same ideals, the same love for the church. So it's beautiful.
Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Ann DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. I am Bill Snyder. It's wonderful to be with you, as always. It's hard to believe we are in smack dab in the middle of June now. This year has been flying right on by, and as always, I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Ann DeSantis. Ann, how are you?
I'm doing I'm doing well, Bill. I got to get that out correctly. Thank you so much. It's great to be here as always.
Yeah, it's crazy. About half the year is done now. It's just wild, but we're just hitting our stride here on Sowing Hope for the year, of course. And I know we have a great guest with us today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
Yes, we have a great guest, and she's also become a friend, I'm happy to say. She is a Catholic author of the book called Simple Mercies. It's how the works of mercy bring peace and fulfillment. Her name is Lara Patangan, and I just want to read her bio and a little bit about the book. About the author is that she earned her undergraduate degree in public relations from the University of Florida. She's written for a variety of news publications and Catholic blogs. Previously, she worked in fundraising for various nonprofits, including a domestic violence shelter, an AIDS service organization, and Children's Hospital of New Orleans. She lives in Jacksonville, Florida, with her husband and their 2 sons. And a little bit about the book is that, and this is related to Laura, that with her accessible everyday approach to life, writer, mom, and volunteer, Lara Patangan helps us realize that our everyday compassion makes a difference in exponential ways, and that mercy always matters. Practicing mercy isn't a passive way of renewal. Rather, engaging in transformative acts of service empowers us to fulfill our purpose to love and serve God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. I just love it. Welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anne. I'm so happy to be here, and congratulations on your new book as well. I love that I know it's something, care for the marginalized, and it's a devotional or whatever, but I love how much it ties into my book or my topic about mercy. And so I think that it's not a chance that we met. I feel like it was kind of by design.
Oh, absolutely. I do too. And of course, when I see your book, and I'm holding it in my hand, and people who are on the audio podcast can't see me holding Simple Mercies, but it's a favorite book. And you're a great writer, and you experienced the love of God in a way that God came to your heart about bringing mercy to other people. And you devoted some time to doing that, and you learned so much. And I think that's what the book is all about.
Right. Absolutely. It really all began for me. I was approaching a milestone birthday. It was going to be my 40th birthday. And I thought of all of the different ways that I could celebrate it. And, you think of having a party or buying something or a trip, and none of these things appealed to me. And so what I ended up with was a year of doing works of mercy in my community. And I really, that to me was a very Holy Spirit inspired idea, because it was very outside of what was my normal day-to-day life. And I learned so much about mercy that year, just giving it and receiving it. And it really taught me how little I had understood mercy before I went and did those acts. And then it wasn't until then that I think I realized that it's not just, the poor and the marginalized that need mercy. It's all of us. We're all desperate for that, and it's available to us all. And so often we encounter it as a part of our daily life, and we give it as a part of our daily life, and often we don't even recognize how this is true. And yet by recognizing it, I think we have so much more peace in our lives, to think about just as a way to connect to God. When you think about doing things, especially hard or mundane things, when you think of doing them for God, it means so much more than sometimes it does for the people that we're closest to, that we do things for all the time, that we're sick of, they're on our nerves. Right. It's easier, to really realize, like, hey, I'm doing this as a way to live my faith, as a way to practice my faith. And I think that's really important, and can really change our whole perspective on service.
Yeah. Wow. I am so impressed, especially by what you said about celebrating your, milestone birthday of 40 years. That's incredible. I can't think of anybody who has celebrated their birthday by doing year and year of active service. And that is so incredible. And I think it's really inspirational for our listeners to hear that, because how often do we just get a cake or take a trip or do something, have a big party with our family and friends? But here, to celebrate our life, we're going to give that life back to other people. We're going to serve others, and we're going to show acts of mercy to people who are in need. And wow, that is just, I am blown away. That is so impressive, that would even, come into your mind and have that thought, that everything else just kind of seems blah. I don't want to go on a cruise. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Wow. Just blown away. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't want to, part of the reason that I really do feel like it was a Holy Spirit inspired thing, because I I wanted those things to appeal to me, Bill. I wanted to, that's what I knew. I'm of the world, you know, and that's what I knew. But I think it was really a reflection of the hollowness that had been growing in my life, and just the emptiness that I was encountering with achievement. You know, I feel like we live in this world that is so achievement oriented, and it wants us to be more and do more and have more, and it's all about the climb, you know, and we get to these places and sometimes we're like, wow, I hit my goal, you know, and then we're surprised with this, you know, that we still have this emptiness. And I think you know, the beautiful things about service and works of mercy is that we were created to love and serve. And so I think it's natural and fitting that it fills us this way, you know, where things of the world just don't. And, you know, I didn't realize that then, but I do, like, looking back, think that that's what was happening, was I just had this like hollowness where none of it, I wanted more in a spiritual way, not in a material way. You know, I wanted purpose. You know, I think that especially as we age, and now I'm approaching 50, you know, I think purpose becomes more and more important to us. What matters, what doesn't matter. You know, anytime there's a big event in our lives, or unfortunately like a death in our lives, or some tragedy we see on the news, it really, you know, I think the benefit or the beauty that we can find in that is that it grounds us back to, who am I? Who do I want to be? I've got this one precious life. How do I want to live it? You know? And I think that those are really important questions to ask ourselves. And the world keeps us so busy that we're distracted, I think, from those kinds of questions.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also commend you, because it is amazing that what Bill said. I mean, that at 40, you said, I don't think I want that party. I don't think I want that cruise. I don't think I want that trip to the Bahamas, you know? So I think that's amazing. And, you know, I also have to say that, you know, sometimes when people experience some kind of really bad thing in their life, whether it be, you know, a sickness, a death in the family, some kind of alienation from other people, then you it's almost like you have a choice. You can either sulk about it, you can become negative with everybody else, or you can turn around and say, you know what, I want to do something for others to live out God's will, but also to help to make this world just a little bit of a better place. And I said to Bill on a podcast that we did yesterday that, you know, the world is never going to be perfect right now because Christ isn't here, right? There's going to be sin, there's going to be pain, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be all of that. So we're never going to really alleviate that completely.
Right.
But I think it's an amazing thing that, you know, you talked about something like achievements, and that sometimes when people get to that point where it's like they've climbed up a ladder of some kind of a success, but they're still empty. Because I look at it at there's almost two roads. There's some people that, for whatever reason, for the most part, they have been able to do life pretty good, meaning that they have gotten the love and support in some ways, not always all, the love and support that they deserve. And they were able to do those things and climb up those little ladders and things like that. But when it comes to mercy, what I've experienced is also that reaching those people are those who haven't gotten the love and support that they deserve for whatever reason. And there are so many. There's so many people that maybe they didn't grow up in the kind of families where they got some kind of like support, or they're in poor marriages, or don't have friends, you know, or community to support them.
Right.
And I don't know if you came across this, but I do think that those people are everywhere. I mean,
absolutely.
And even honestly, I don't know if you would agree with this. I think they're even in Catholic ministry. Oh,
I do.
absolutely. I think that it's even in Catholic ministry. So,
no, I mean, I think, that again, for me, I approached this year as mercy is for those of us who are blessed to go out and do for others. And by the end of the year, I realized how hungry and how desperate I was for mercy in my own life, and there was so much healing that needed to take place, that really kind of happened after that year for me, where, and I think the most fundamental thing that as an individual that I got out of it, was a deeper understanding of mercy, and it changed my relationship with God, because before I understood it, it was kind of like, God loves you, but you don't really know it in your DNA. You know what I mean? You don't really feel it. You're kind of like, well, I guess he does because he's God and he has to love everybody. So I guess I get thrown in, but to feel like he can love me as an individual, that became real to me, because I think I saw myself as so flawed and broken that I just couldn't grasp how I could mean anything to him, but through mercy, it's just a different lens that we see. And I was able to know God on a deeper and more intimate level through his mercy. So it's, mercy is very important to me. I mean, I love this. I think it's such a universal need that we all have, even people who don't have faith, I imagine they're particularly desperate for mercy in their lives. And I do think that we all have that longing, and and there's this assumption, because we all believe in equality. That's one of our American values. It's one of our Christian values, but the reality is we are not all created equal, and we do not all have the same experiences, and our experiences are different. And I often think about, my own life, and I think, well, I didn't necessarily get what I needed from the people who were supposed to give it to me. But in most cases, I was fortunate enough that somebody else stepped in and gave it to me. And I think, I look at that as mercy, and what a difference that made in my life, from keeping me from going in a totally different direction. And so I think it's why it's so important, I think, for us all to be generous with our mercy. And I think, is self-centered as we can all be, in some ways, I think we don't value our significance enough. We don't realize the impact that we can have on our neighbor and how powerful that can be. And I think I definitely felt that way. You think that you have to do something drastic to serve your neighbor, and, you need to join the Peace Corps, move to India, and there's just so many opportunities right here and right now in our daily lives to give and receive mercy.
Great job. Honestly, I mean, you did an amazing job with the book. Now, I want to tell people where they can buy it. It's from OSV, which is our Sunday Visitor. And if you go to their website, obviously you can see that book. So, you can download a free chapter on their book, on their website of the book too. Right now, I think they have "Comfort the Sorrowful" as the chapter that you can download, so you can have a free read and see if you like it. And then on my website, which is larapatangan.com, I have a free study guide for the book, that if you do purchase it, you can use the study guide with your friends or Bible study groups, or just on your own to go a little deeper into the book. I have to say, I think that this book is a great book for studies, for church studies. So if somebody's listening and you work at a church or you're in ministry, I mean, it's an amazing book because every chapter, like I'm looking at it right now, you have visit the sick, you have visit prisoners, bury the dead, admonish the sinner, instruct the ignorant. I mean, you have all of those spiritual works of mercy. And also you have the corporal works of mercy too, giving drink to the thirsty and clothing the naked and sheltering the homeless. So, I mean, you did an amazing job. And I love the book. I'm glad that, and I'm thankful to you that I have the book and enjoying it. So it's helping me because, like you mentioned at the beginning, that I wrote a short book on meditations called Love and Care for the Marginalized. And so I see a big correlation there with what you've done, and a little bit about what I've done too, because I just think, and I think you probably would agree, that there's a lot of people who are in need of God's mercy that are all around us. And we don't have to go too far, like you said.
No, absolutely not. And what's so great about your book is that it's a devotional. So I think I like that because I like the whole, if you pray it in the morning, you know what I mean? It kind of keeps you focused. It's like that good reminder that we all need. You know, we all need to start our day in prayer because it really helps, I think, center us as we go out and experience, you know, the secular messages of the world. And, you know, and it's like putting on armor, you know, for the day. And I think that's so important.
So can you talk to us about what you learned during that year? Because I'm sure that you met so many people and you were able to pray for so many different situations. Please tell us, because that's a lesson for all of us to be better people.
Well, I think one of the biggest things I learned is the importance of just being open and willing to serve as it comes along. You know, when I started this project, I had all of these lists of different nonprofits that I was going to volunteer for, you know, and I tried to line them up with the works of mercy. And, you know, it's like you try to be real organized and you know, you have your plan, and then God comes along with his plan and he just knocks it all out. And one of the first works of mercy I did was bury the dead. And what happened was I read in the newspaper about some Burmese refugees who had been in a car accident, and two of the men in the car had died. And I knew that we had a large Burmese population of refugees at my church. So I reached out to someone who worked with them. And I said, I don't know if you know this family, but if you do, if there's anything I can do to help, you know, please let me know. And so she put me in touch with someone else, and I'll never forget, because it was such a powerful question to me. But the woman said, who knew the family, she said, well, what can you do? You know, and it's kind of humbling, because you think, well, what can I do? You know, I'm just this ordinary person, and you know, I don't know. And so I said, well, I can cook, even though I hate to cook. Please don't ask me to cook. But I was like, I can cook, I can watch children, you know, whatever you need. And she said, well, can you plan the funeral? And I mean, I had never planned a funeral before, but I said yes. And my husband and I went over and we met with the family at their apartment. And that was, again, very humbling, because they had just lost their father, and one of the kids didn't even know yet. It was very sad. And then the next day I went with them to the funeral home and helped plan the services. And I mean, I can't tell you how many obstacles there were, because their English was very limited, and we had somebody with us that was there to translate, but they spoke a different dialect, and there was just questions about or confusion about whether they wanted the body cremated or not, and how it was going to be paid for. But we just muddled through little by little. And, but that was a great lesson to me, because it's like you can do more than you think you can do. We all can. And it's just really, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know what you're doing. You can make mistakes. You can say you don't know. It's okay. I think so much of service is just showing up for somebody else, just being there. I'm going to walk you through this. I don't know what I'm doing either, but I'm going to represent, and you just, you can just be here, and because I know you're holding on by a thread. And so that was and again, that was not through a nonprofit or anything else. It was just something that had come across, my life. And because I was doing this project, I was like, well, I know Burmese refugees, maybe I can help, and so I would say really just one of the important things that I learned is just to have an openness and willingness to serve. And I think part of that too, that kind of goes back to the beginning of this, is I really felt like I am not a theologian. I am not a scholar. I couldn't have even told you what all 14 of the works of mercy were when I decided I was going to do this. And I think I just felt very empowered, thinking that if I could do it, anybody could do it. And so that's something else that I think is really, I would really want people to know, or encourage people that there is nothing special about me. The only thing special about me is my utter ordinariness. And if you can relate to that, then know that you can do these things too. And I somehow felt very empowered by that, very like, that's my degree. My degree is in not knowing, and I'm going to do it anyway. And we're called to do it. So, just answer the call, and God will equip you.
Yeah. I am so impressed by that. And I think, I think our listeners are so blessed by what you're sharing with us, because, you mentioned earlier that, realizing that you are, have your own flaws. You don't necessarily have it all together, and every aspect of this doesn't have to be lined up to do something and to do it well. And I think that is such an encouragement for people. Our tagline at Patchwork Heart Ministry is simply sowing hope into broken hearts. And it's realizing that we all have, deficiencies. We all are not perfect human beings. There were only two, and one of them was God. So,
Right.
But the beautiful thing about that is that, especially in your story about burying the dead, you didn't have to have it all together in order to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. And as you said, nothing was, so like, there wasn't any major, earth-shattering miracles happening or anything, supernatural, visibly supernatural happening, but something supernatural did happen because through that ordinariness, as you said, through the ordinariness, something extraordinary did happen. And so I want to echo what you're saying for all of our listeners and remind them that where you are planted, if you feel that nudge from the Holy Spirit, if you feel, like your 40th birthday is something that is just going to be another blah event that's going to come and go, to say, you know what, no, I'm going to make something of this event in my life. I'm going to make something of who I am by simply being ordinary and doing what I can do and doing it for the Lord. Because I think that's the other aspect, and maybe you can touch on that, is, doing these things, to honor God and certainly to serve our brothers and sisters. That's what the corporal and spiritual works of mercy are all about. It's to serve those. But it's also to honor God, because in Matthew 25, God says, and to all the to all the sheep who are doing God's will, He's going. All the sheep say to Him, "Wait a minute, when did we see you, hungry and thirsty and all these things?" But He goes, I assure you, when you did that for me. So maybe just touch a little bit on that, if you would.
Absolutely, and I think that's where the peace from works of mercy can really come in, is when we do them for God, because His greatest commandment was to love me and to love your neighbor, and I think that loving your neighbor is a way to love God. They're one and the same. It's like you can't love God and not love your neighbor. Like they have to come together. It's one commandment, and it's the greatest commandment. And again, like I mentioned, cooking, I do not love to cook. I'm not good at it. People are not happy when I do it. It's like, or I don't get the validation or the feedback I want. I like to bake. I get, that's a different story. And I know that, again, that's such an ordinary thing to say, but if I cook dinner for my family and I do it knowing that I'm loving and serving God, it means more to me. And I'm not so resentful or angsty about it. I'm not so concerned with, the feedback I'm going to get from it or any of that. It's a game changer. And, as much as I don't want it to be, it's important that I cook for my family. So it's like these things matter. It's important for us to have family dinners and to have this time together. And so it's like kind of like through that sacrifice and through that service, by doing it for God, then it brings me more peace. It really does. Like it's such a beautiful way too. Like I think, especially sometimes when it's like we go to mass and we leave and we want to be on fire for God and we want to serve Him. And then we get into the nitty gritty of our lives. And sometimes that experience we have at mass or our faith life just seems far away. It doesn't seem, relevant. And I think that the works of mercy, they make our service relevant, and so it's just like totally a way to live our faith. And if you really look at the 14 works of mercy, like I'm blown away with how practical they are. It's not, again, I think so many of us think of service in terms of food, clothing, shelter, and, instructing the uninformed, admonishing the sinner, like, praying for others, forgiveness. Oh my heavens. All of these things are so important, and be patient with those in error. That's certainly, be patient is a work of mercy that all of us can do every day at our jobs, with our children, with the people in traffic, with the people in the grocery store. It's like these, when I started and I wrote about my experiences and I shared them on a blog, and I have a website, and one of the things that I knew from the beginning with this was, I was like, gosh, my topic that I'm in love with sounds so archaic. It's like works of mercy. It's like, what is that? And it's like, oh my, they're so relevant, get to know them, that you're doing them, that you have encounters to do them. And it does fascinate me how encompassing that list is, counsel the doubtful. I don't know if that's just me, but that's particularly one that I can relate to in my life. Things are very rarely clear to me, and I can get lost in the spiral of doubt. And so I think that, and I know a lot of people that I'm friends with seem like that too, where you kind of have to, coach them through it or whatever. And just like they do with me through their friendship, but the relevance of them is really there if we pay attention to it, and if we really connect it as a way to worship God without being on our knees in prayer. It is a very meaningful way to live our lives, to make the whole of our lives a prayer.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful, because it was a learning experience for you that you took seriously. And you said it has brought you some peace too. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And, peace is a really wonderful experience to have with God when you know that you tried your best.
Right.
And I wanted to address something, if I could too. And this is something that I addressed even when I was pondering all these things, was when Bill and I had the podcast recently, we did do 2 podcasts on love of God and love of neighbor. Now we split them up into 2, but we know that we were recognizing that it was one great big commandment.
Right.
But I think too often, and I don't know if you've experienced this, sometimes when people are very devoted to their faith, and I put myself into that category too, right? Yeah. But sometimes we can do a lot of praying for people and for situations. Somebody has cancer, somebody lost their job, somebody's having relationship issues, all that. You're praying real hard for this person. But now, and I could be wrong, but some of my experience is you don't see as much of the action. Mm-hmm. So yes, you see a lot of love of God. I see that a lot of real deep love of God, but not a lot of that other than their own family and friends and people in their church community.
Right.
Say that they're praying for the person in the church group that has a broken leg, or, somebody in their charismatic prayer group, but you don't see quite as much other than praying for their, quote, their souls to, come around to their faith. You see that, but you don't see as much of the outreach for someone who has been through, and as I'm going to repeat it again, doesn't have the love and support they deserve. Now, I'm not talking about God.
Right.
I'm talking about love and support that they deserve from people.
Right.
And see, I think that's where it really, where the rubber meets the road, is when they don't have the love and support from people.
Right.
And for me, my experience too, like you were talking about, not understanding how much God loves us. And my own experience of faith was that I never had a problem with that aspect, but it was the people aspect I had more of a problem with. I don't know if anybody else has said that to you, but it's not so much not understanding how much God loved me. I had no problem with that. I knew that, but not having that love and support that sometimes people deserve from others.
Right.
And we can't control that part.
Right.
So I think that what we can be for people to bridge that gap, like what you're doing, is exactly what you're doing, is providing that love and support.
Right.
That's how they feel God's love for them when we do it. Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if you've ever heard any of these concepts, or if you had any comments on them.
Well, it's funny because that year, when I started doing the Works of Mercy, I was so excited. I was so naive. I look back at me and I just think, oh, bless your heart, honey. You had no idea what you were getting into. But I was, after a few of these encounters, I thought, this is sad. This is really heavy. This stuff at these Works of Mercy, service isn't easy. It's not easy to sit with somebody in their pain and in their suffering, and to be a part of that. But again, it's such a beautiful thing to do. But I definitely, I think, got a little lost during that year, especially in the beginning, with feeling like I wanted to I wanted my service to matter more. I wanted that, it's that whole more word that just keeps coming up, but it's, but like I would serve food at the soup kitchen and I would go home and I would think, well, that was good, but there were still hungry people. And what about that little 1-year-old baby who's, was with her daddy? Like what kind of life is she going to have? And all of those things, they really bothered me. And I think it was hard to reconcile human suffering with God's mercy. Why, even though things in my life haven't been perfect, but why is my life so much better than so many of these other people's? And but one of the things that I finally learned from all of that is that God just calls us to serve. He doesn't call us to solve, and I wasn't there to solve these very complicated social issues and social problems that, or their origins and all of that, because we can get lost in that. It can be a big deterrent to be like, well, I mean, I can go do these things, but what does it really matter? What kind of difference is it really going to make? And I think we have to kind of break mercy down into these smaller parts of, if you could just give someone a moment of merciful relief, that's beautiful. That's huge. If you think about your own life and the mercy that you have received from others, when you're going through a very difficult time, sometimes a moment is just enough to get you through so that you can get yourself together and begin again. I mean, these moments matter. And that's why I think that that none of the mercy that we show is ever insignificant. And I do think it's exponential. I think it lives on beyond what we ever see. I think it spreads. I mean, I hear about good deeds that other people do, and it inspires me, and sometimes I share those with others. And I think goodness has this amazing life force to live on. And to kind of get back to your question, Sam, I think, Catholics have historically had such an amazing reputation and a well-earned reputation for service. We were educators and medical professionals, and we served. We were in the soup kitchens, and we were doing all of these things. And that's one of the things that I love so much about our faith is that commitment to service. And I do think that that I would like to see us get a little bit more in touch with that again, to do more, like you said, reaching out beyond our parishes and raising money even for things that are beyond our parishes. I mean, I know it's nice to have beautiful places to worship or, gyms for our kids or, schools. All my kids went through Catholic school. But I think it's also important to serve the help meet the basic needs of the people in our community. And I really hope that this book would inspire people to do that, that I think there's two different kinds of service. I think there's the service that we do that is organic, that just comes across our daily life that we can do and that we need to be open to and willing to step up, because I feel like God puts those opportunities there for us. And then I think there's also the service that, depending on the season of our life, that we can go out and do in our community for others. And again, I can't think of a better way to represent the Catholic faith, a better way to do outreach, a better way to evangelize than through service. People, especially, Christians, have become the enemy, and where people have some very negative connotations of what it means to be Christian or to be Catholic. And it's such a shame, because there's so many good people in the faith that are living the faith. And I think if we, who can argue with service? I mean, how can you say anything bad about me if I'm out there serving in my community. I mean, it's just impossible to me. You know, you can't be ugly about that. There's no, it's all goodness. It's such a good representation of love.
Yeah. And yeah, you're so spot on, and especially when you think about the different transcendentals, truth, goodness, and beauty, right? Those things that are access points to God. And goodness is one of the things that can never be argued with, right? Like it just can't be argued with. And if you are doing good out there in the world, if you are serving, and that's really what goodness is, right? Like when we think about goodness in the world, we think of maybe the end of A Wonderful Life, right? Or things like that. But like that's those acts of service, those acts of pure love that cannot be argued with. It's impossible for somebody, as you said, to speak badly of you, or say that Christianity or Catholicism is horrible, it's a bad denomination, these are bad people, when you're out there doing good. And it's objective good. Like the beautiful thing about the works of mercy is that they are objectively good. It's not subjective. Like it is basic to every human being that they need to be fed, that they need to be clothed, that they need to have, peace in their life. Like all of these things are just innately ingrained into our souls because we're created by God. And so when you are serving those core needs, showing mercy to people who do not have those needs being met currently in their life, there's not a person on the planet that can say, "Oh, that person's no good." And I think that the other thing you pointed out in there about the results, they're all needing to have results constantly. That we are just meant to serve, not solve the problems. Like if we're meeting those core needs, if we're giving people food, and I love the Our Father, and I often reflect on, give us this day our daily bread. He doesn't say give us this day our bread for the next 365 days. He says, give us today's bread and today's bread only, right? And so if we are doing that and trusting that God is going to then provide the bread for the next day for that person, we know that we are doing His will in that moment. And so that's so beautiful. And I just think your mission and what you have uncovered for us in your book and for our listeners today is just fantastic. So I want to thank you for your passionate service to the Lord, because it's awesome, Lara. Thank you.
Well, I love the whole thing about the Our Father. I've never thought of it like that. And that's I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's I'm one of those people who, always worried about the future, or what do I, it's that present moment is difficult for me. And I love thinking about that. You're right. Our daily bread, and to also think about it being enough for someone else, that the person that you fed today, that to trust in God. It's like the scripture that, and I can't quote it, but about, the birds having enough, that God makes sure the birds have enough. Like, why wouldn't he make sure that we have enough when we're so much more important to Him? And so that's a beautiful way to visualize it for me, because like I said, I did get kind of down during that year with I think part of it was just seeing so much suffering and just really being so hungry to make a difference. I wanted, and this is again where the personal part of it comes in, but I wanted to matter. I wanted to do something that mattered. And I still had that secular mentality that I had been exposed to my whole life, that you have to do something big for it to matter. And now I'm like, no. You can do something small and it can matter so much. And through God, it's amazing. It's like small things become big, and I love that. I love the transformational nature of God, to be able to take small acts and make them big, through other people, through just the love that we have behind it.
Wow, that's beautiful. I want to thank both of you for your reflections. Bill, Our Father, I never heard that, so thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to just address a couple things. The mercy moments, love that. Not looking for results. I mean, that's a big part of what I believe and what I've learned too from my own research on this, right?
Yeah.
Living it out.
Yeah.
And I just want to read, if I could, a couple more paragraphs from the back of the book. I have to recommend this book again for people listening. It's Simple Mercies by Lara Patangan, How the Works of Mercy Bring Peace and Fulfillment, by our Sunday visitor, OSV. Make sure that you go to their website to buy it. You could go to Amazon too, Simple Mercies. And even after achieving our most lofty goals, sometimes we are left confused by the emptiness we feel. We check the boxes, we fill our calendars, we get the promotion, we buy the bigger house, yet there's still an unquenchable longing deep within us. Simple Mercies, How the Works of Mercy Bring Peace and Fulfillment, offers an alternative. You can be the person God created you to be by loving and serving others through the works of mercy. By doing so, we are assured the peace and fulfillment that doesn't come from the world, but from love of God and neighbor. So please do get this book on Amazon, check it out, connect with Lara. I get a lot of people who ask me to do book reviews. I'm going to be honest, I get about 10 a month.
Wow.
I get about 10 books in the mail a month or emailed to me. And this is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne.
Yeah. And you do a great job also, I have to say, with getting the word out about your book too, because people need to find out about it. So yeah. I like the way that you communicate with your team to help for us to be able to help you to get the word out about this book.
So
thank you so much.
Yeah, and Lara, just tell us real quick again how people can get in touch with you too. If that's something that you would like people to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I write every week on my blog, and lately I've been sharing other works of mercy that other people have done, and I love it when people send them to me because they're so inspiring. And I share those with people on my blog. So they're great little stories. But my website is Lara Patangan, LaraPatangan.com, LaraPatangan.com. I think it's also under Mercy Matters, it would be much easier to Google. So, but yes, please visit the website and sign up.
Awesome.
I would love that.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Lara. Know that you're always welcome here to talk with us. You've given us so much hope. Please.
Oh, great.
Please
Thank you.
Of course. And folks, know that we'll put all of the links and whatnot in the show notes on the audio version. So if, wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure that you head over and get the links and just click them for all the different websites and the book. But until next time, from all of us here at Patchwork Heart Ministry, the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, and Fiat Ministry Network, thank you so very much for tuning in today. We'll be back on Thursday. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and andesantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or Andy Santis 2.